So let's see what we can do. We need to do some decision-making syntax in Python. And I think I've got everything going here. Your assignments this week, we looked at them last time, but just to review, we have a Code Academy and a Runestone section that are both about if statements in Python. So you should get some good experience with that. And then our assignment is this positive negative number program. So today we want to make sure we do enough practice that that program seems easy. I want to do this Raspberry Pi assignment. That's kind of what I was planning today. We would talk about if statements and then look at the Raspberry Pis, which are the little teeny like $25 computers. You can run Python stuff on those. But we'll probably put that off till next week so that like everybody get a chance to see them. And so we might get them out today if we have time and work on getting all the pieces put together for the whole class. But totally just up to you guys. We'll see how it's going. Now I want to do some if statements first. So I'd like to open my Python quick reference Word document. And remember, you can link this into your OneNote notebook. Just copy and paste that link to your Word document into your OneNote notebook. And if you have your Word document saved on your Microsoft OneDrive, then that link would work in your OneNote notebook wherever you are, if that makes sense to you. So if not, it's all right. You get there. So we want to put some if statements in. And as you can imagine, the keyword is if. So we're going to start our if statements with the keyword if. And then we're going to have some sort of condition. And then we're going to have a colon. Now the colon is required by Python. And it tells Python that you just finished a statement that has a body. And that's because our if statement, and I pressed Shift Enter to not make it open up a new row, but just so that I could go down. And I want to indent here, and I'm going to say this is where my if statement body goes, under the if statement. So we'll practice with these, and this will make a lot more sense after we actually do it. Let's get this in our quick reference guide first. So we're going to have the keyword if, followed by a condition like A equals B, or variable equals 0, or whatever our condition might be. And then our colon. And then underneath that, we're going to have indented the code that we want to run if that condition is true. So remember, we're just putting in there code that's going to run if the condition is true at this point. All right, let's try it. Let's open idle. Now in idle, once we get it open, we want to create a new file, a new script file or source code file, and I want to save this file. I'm going to go to the location where I save my Python programs. Oops, I saved mine on my H drive, my 120 folder. And I want this to be if statement 1.py. When we first started using idle, I said, you know, if you don't put the .py, it'll leave it off and it won't be color-coded. Have you noticed if that's still true? I think I left it off the other day and it did it, man, like it's supposed to. Maybe we'll finally get a version of it that does that right. So let me know if you notice if it works. I'm not going to take a risk, though, because I remembered this time, so I'm going to put my .py. All right, I want my header comments. So I'm going to do the 3 single quotes. I'll say that this script is an if statement test. Not a test in a bad way, just a program test. Come on in. You slid on in, huh? You guys are getting here. You have to ask everybody. Madison, did you have trouble? Do what? You made it. A few times. Huh? It's not tabbing right, so I'm just trying to press the space bar. Fight with it a little bit, but not to the death, you know, and it's idle. And we're going to move to a different editor, but I don't want to do that today while we have so many people out in the ice and everything, but we will next week, and it should be a little bit more cooperative with us. So for now, just kind of space and tab wherever you can. I'm sure that idle has some sort of rhyme or reason as to why it's doing that, but it's just not a good enough editor for us to figure all that out. We'll use a better one. Now our purpose here is going to be to develop if statement knowledge. How's that? We'll probably have that same purpose for a few today. And then I'm going to close my 3 tick marks or single quotes. Again, it tabs those just right. And the problem is Python, like we just saw in our quick reference, that colon is meaningful to Python in the code. So even though we're in the comments, it's thinking that that's something important. So that's why it does some kind of weird things. If I would use a different character than the colon, it would probably be happier. But we'll get this. Okay, so for our program, let's ask the user a question. So for our question, let's save the answer in a variable. So we're trying to declare our variables. So for our variables, we would like a variable that's going to hold their answer. That's going to be a string. So we'll start out with an initial value of just an empty string or 2 double quotes together.
I might have a question about that when we're doing the homework. Does it matter if there's a space or not? Or should there not be a space?
It shouldn't matter, but if you print out this variable, if there's a space, it'll do a space. If there's not, it won't.
Okay.
So, but it really doesn't matter usually with a string. Okay, so that's the only variable that we know that we need right at this moment. So let's ask a question, and we want to save the answer that they give us into our answer variable. So we'll use our input statement in Python to say, were the roads bad this morning? Now, if you notice, once you close everything, idle kind of highlights it all, so you can kind of see what's happening there. That when you put your ending double quote, it kind of highlights that whole selection, and then when you close that parenthesis, it sort of does. So it at least is trying to help you a little bit see that you closed out that. So let's put an if statement. So we said we need the keyword if, and then our condition. So let's say we want to check to see what the answer was. We should give them more info in our question. What kind of answer do you want? Do you want a whole word yes, or do you just want them to type like a Y or an N in response to our question? We need to be a little more specific there, because with our if statement, we kind of need to know what to check for. So do you just want a Y? If it was, we'll do that. We'll put that in our question here. I'll put it in between the words and the question marks, and we'll put Y/N. And then that way, we're giving them the instructions on what kind of answer we want. Now, I know it's been a couple weeks since we looked at if statements and our presentations and in our pseudocode and in Raptor. So you might have forgotten, but when we're doing an if statement, we always use 2 equal signs to check for an equal condition. So we want to say if answer equals y, and put a colon, we want to print out something. Glad you arrived safely. That's the only thing I want to do for my if statement if it's true. So when I press enter, I'm going to back tab. I can press shift tab. Well, I lied. I'll press enter again. Look at it's going everywhere. Backspace took me back to where I need to be. So idle does some weird things. But I don't want any more things to happen in my if statement, but I do want to print a final message. So I'm going to make sure that it is backspaced and starts at the beginning of the line. It's not indented under that if statement. So we'll say something like end of program there. So go ahead and try it if you're ready. Biddy said I'll go ahead and run it. So I'm going to say yes with an uppercase Y, and I get both of my messages. Glad you arrived safely, and it's the end of the program. Now let's try something else. If I run it again, and I put in an N, I don't get that message about arriving safely because we only run that line of code if the if statement is true. Now let's try a couple of other things. What if we did a lowercase y? What would that do? Just say end of program. How could we fix it? Do we want to let them do an uppercase or a lowercase y? Do I? In our if statement? So how could we do that? With the or? I'm going to put a space after my question mark here because it's bothering me that my answer is squished right up against that. Okay, try it. Make sure that it gives you the same results now if you do an uppercase or a lowercase y. Oh, I still got my message. So let's add another print statement in our if statement body. I'm going to put something in here like this message from the if statement. Now, with our Python programming language, I can add as many statements as I want to this if statement body. I just have to keep indenting them to the same level. So notice how both of these lines of code are indented the same amount. This is one of the things that can get us as beginning Python programmers. I use the tab key, or actually, if you notice, I clicked here after the closing parenthesis and pressed enter, and I let idle place my cursor there lined up underneath that print statement. And then I didn't have to worry about tabbing over to the right spot. The thing is, a tab character and a space are different, and they're different to Python and they're different to idle. So if you have a mixture, it'll get very upset with you. So you can have trouble with your program that doesn't have anything to do with anything you can see because Python's upset about these spaces and tabs and things like that. Now, You probably won't remember, but help each other. In idle, if you go up to the format menu, there are a bunch of settings to try to help with things like that. So you could select some code and indent the entire region. You could dedent it. So if you had a bunch of code that was indented and it was giving you error messages, you could dedent it or unindent it. You can tabify and untabify. All of these things are going to depend on what kind of special characters are already in that source code file that have got to be corrected. So if you run into trouble like that, remember that this format menu is out here and it can help correct some of those issues. They'll catch you by surprise because it'll pop up when you've been thinking really hard and you're accidentally using the space bar to indent some of your lines, and sometimes you were using the tab. Now, another thing that'll get you is, like for me, my eyes don't see level, if that makes sense, like one is above the other. And so I can really easily get one line spaced over a space further than all the other lines without noticing it. One time I did some documentation and the other programmers laughed at me a whole bunch and said the whole thing just went like this because I kept spacing like one space further every line. To me, it didn't look like that at all. I guess as a sign I needed some glasses, but I got those and got a little better. But I can do that really easy. So things like that that can happen that wouldn't affect you in old like programming languages that aren't as smart as Python. Those kinds of things can reach up and bite you in Python, even though it's a super smart programming language. So it won't be a problem once you get used to it. Just be aware that that kind of thing can happen, and it's not picking on you or anything. We just have to figure out what's wrong and get it fixed. All right, let's run this now and see if we get our new message about this message being from the if statement. My things are way down there. So I'm going to say yes, they were bad. And now we get two messages because we have two lines of code under our if statement. All right, does that make sense? So I want to add some more to this. Let's say we want to congratulate people if it wasn't bad. We want an else clause. We want an alternative to our if. So to do that, I'm going to backspace and type the word else followed by a colon. Now, all of my else statement body, just like my if statement body, I can put any lines of code I want to in here. I could do another if statement if I wanted to. Let's just print something out. We'll say that's great to hear. And then let's print another message from our else clause. Now if I run it, I'm going to get some extra output no matter what I say, no matter how I respond to the message. Because if I respond with a Y, I'm going to get the stuff that we already had, glad you arrived. If I respond with anything else, it'll run the code in my else, right? Anything else. So it doesn't matter what else I say. So if I put in all sorts of weirdness, I'm going to get the stuff out of my else clause because it wasn't just a Y. So from our else clause. Let's try I'm going to try that Python visualization site. You guys don't worry about going there yet. Let me see if it'll work. Since it wouldn't work for us the other day. Oh, it's working. Okay. So copy your code. And we want to go to the pythontutor.com website. And on pythontutor.com, let me go straight to that website if I can. We want to visualize our code. And up here at the top, make sure it says write code in Python 3.6. And then paste your code in. Now I'm going to click visualize execution. Hopefully all of you guys getting on there won't break it like last time. So far it looks good. Now, what this site is doing is it's going to show us over here our memory, and over here each of our lines of code that's executing. So I want to get started. It's sitting here where this red arrow is. Line 6 is what line of code it's ready to execute. That's just the end of our comment. So if I click the forward button, it should just move down. We shouldn't see anything happen because that was just the end of our comment. Now if I click forward again, it'll run this line of code to set up our answer variable. Yep, there it is. So now over here in memory, we see our answer variable is set up. See it? Now, next, we're ready to run the line of code to ask our user that question. We're sitting here with our red arrow. It's going to run that line of code. So let's click. Oh, wait, actually, I'm already on it. Here's my prompt. Were the roads bad this morning? Now, I know I can bring a keyboard up on this thing, but I don't know how yet. So I'll just walk over here and I'll say yes and submit that. And it kind of flashed there for a second and came back. Now, look, our answer variable now has a value of y, whatever we typed in. And I'm to my if statement. So now, if I click forward, it should execute the if statement and check to see if the answer is equal to y. It is. So we see that it's saying, oh, okay, I'm going to execute your if statement body. So I'll print out this message, glad you arrived safely. Print out this message from the if statement. Whoops, stop it, forward. And then it will bypass all that code in the else statement because the if statement was true, right? So we just bypass. So in our textbook, they say an if statement is a selection statement. And this is what it's doing. It's helping us select which code to execute in our program, right? Because we're not executing all of the code now. When we first started, we were just doing sequential execution, and we would run every line of code that we had. Now with our if statement, we're selecting certain lines to run. Now I want to run it again. So I'm going to go back to the first line of code. Notice how it clears everything out. I'm going to click forward to run that line. Next line. Now, when I do my next line, I should see that input prompt for me. Oh, it just did it automatically. I'm going to have to reset it. I'll refresh. Put my code back in. Visualize it. Now I want to say something besides yes this time. So try it again. There's my input. I'll say no or N and submit that. Now our answer variable equals N in memory. We can see it. Our if statement, watch it now. It's going to say, oh, that's not true. So it's going to jump to the else and execute the lines of code that are with the else statement. Is it helpful? It helps me a lot. So do you want anything we can do there? Because it can be like, there's so many different levels of understanding. So some people just totally, it's clear in their heads right away at the very beginning. Some people, we have to see it a few times over and over to really get an idea of what's going on. Some, you know, like, huh? So that's just okay. That's where we all are. We're all starting. So we want to get all to the same place. Now we could change a lot of our code here if we wanted to. So like if you guys wanted to try declaring some additional variables and watch them in memory and see what happens, we could do that. But let's try some additional if statements. I'm going to leave this, just minimize it, and go back to our idle file. And I want to save this one and open a new one. I'm just going to make sure it's saved. And then I'll use the shell to create a new file. And I'm going to save it. Let's name this one if statement 2.py. I'm going to put some comments here. Doesn't matter even without the colons, it's just idle weirdness. So we'll call this one another if statement test. And it's 228. So I guess March is going to come in like a lion, huh? We're going to be testing the elif structure. So this is going to give us multiple selections. That previous program we looked at, when we had our if statement only, that was a single selection. Only one thing we could do, either do that if statement body or just keep going, right? When we put an else clause in, we made it dual selection. There were two things now. We could do either this or this, and we had multiple choices. We'd like to try something where there's more choices, kind of like our car price program, and we'll do that one next because we have something to refer to with it. But so for this one, let's ask what time of year it is, and then we can give some sort of message depending on the season. So let's create a variable. And we'll call it season. And we'll say that it's going to be empty. We'll ask our user then, what is the season? We'll do it kind of like, is it, I'm thinking we should get fancy here. What is the season? Now, I'd like for, after that prompt, I'm thinking that I want to go to a new line. And I want to create some sort of like menu structure that our user can use. We can actually put in some special characters in our string to tell the operating system to go to a new line. And what we would use is the \n. So I'm going to put that right in our string. We won't see it when we're running our program, but we'll see it go to a new line. So after our new line, let's say we're going to put W for winter, and then I want a new line again. And we're going to put S for spring and a new line again. Let's do, I guess, U for summer, since we already took S. And then we'll do F for fall. Now, after fall displays, I want to go down to a new line again, and I'm going to have like a question mark and a space. Okay, let's run that and see what that looks like before we go any further, because I'm throwing a lot at you. Now, if you make a typo or something, it's not going to cause any trouble. It's just not going to display exactly the way we want, so we can fix that. I'm going to run it and see how it's looking. Oh, there it is. So see where every time we put that \n, it went to a new line. So now we have kind of a menu structure here that we've displayed, and then we have our little question mark at the end asking for our input. Okay, so how's yours? Need to look at this once more? Takes a bit of getting used to, for sure. And this one is kind of long. Like I said, I'm throwing a really long one at you right off the bat, because you guys are always so super about everything. So the \n is a control code that we can just send to the system, embedded, stuck inside of our string, and the system says, oh, I see that control code. I need to go to a new line on the console, on this window. So that's how we can make that work. Okay, how's yours doing? I want to see him. How are they doing? How's yours?
Actually, were we supposed to put that question mark at the end?
It's up to you. Now we're going to use this for our car pipe tail fingers. Back here, spread out. I don't know what you're going to have back here going to your donut area. I thought you had that. In Python, it has to all be on the same line. So you could do, like, you could close with a double quote and have each one be a completely separate string. It would let you do it that way. Yeah, it would be. Can you take over and show everybody yours so we can show them that? Let me release this share just for a sec. Aaron's going to take it over because he has it kind of set up nice. If I can move it to where you guys can see it. Okay, so he didn't like that really long string, which, you know, makes sense because it was going so far. So he wanted to split it up into multiple lines. So we can do that, but to do that, we have to make each one be its own string. So he would have to put a double quote after this N on that first line, and then do a plus sign to add more to that string. And then he would have to do a double quote at the beginning over here and close it after the N and do a plus sign. So see how if we want a string to be split on multiple lines, we have to make it multiple strings. Python, no programming language is very good at handling us pressing enter inside of that string. So either way, yeah, we can keep it all in one. He's going to squish it all up. We have it. Thank you, sir. Does that make sense? Just a different ways of doing it. That's one thing about programming, that it does give you an opportunity to be creative, which is great because you can come up with a way of doing things that you like. So it might not be exactly the way the next person would do it, but that's okay. Okay, so now we've got this menu structure built with our input statement. We just got really, really fancy. And so we want to check to see what our response is. We have multiple possibilities. Let me type multiple correctly. So we know now that we had 4 different options that we would expect or allow from our user. So in our first if statement, I'll check the first one we asked for. So I'll say if season equals W. Now with Python, can we get away with just saying or lowercase w like this? Last time in our last program, I put if season equals W or season equal lowercase w. That's what I have to do in other programming languages. I have to repeat both sides of that comparison in both places. But I think Python is a little smarter and will let us get away with shortcutting it. We'll see. Okay, so if it's winter, what do you want to say? Put it in the chat. I need help. Let's chat with me. Tell me what you want to say. I'm going to say something dumb. Okay.
I don't know, birds.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, it's cold. Let's ask him something else. I'm going to create another. Well, we'll come back and do that in a minute. Getting ahead here. All right, so we'll tell him, ooh, it's cold. Let's print out one more message. Be sure to bundle up. So we know we've got a couple of things coming out. So a lot of times our books and stuff will just do one thing in an if statement, and it can actually be kind of confusing to people when they want to do more than one thing. So now we're going to throw in this keyword called elif. So elif means, okay, that if wasn't true, what else do you want me to check? So let's check our season to see if it was spring. We'll do that April showers, spring, May flowers. I think it's always backwards in Missouri, though. I think it's more like April flowers, spring, May showers or something. We always rain more in May. And then let's print something else. What else about spring?
Don't forget your rain boots.
Oh, that's a good idea. Don't forget your rain boots. Now, that elif clause, if you notice our syntax here, we had the keyword elif, like else if shortened. We had a condition, and we ended it with a colon. Our else statement didn't have a condition, right? It just had the colon. So that's really important that we have to have that condition on an elif clause. Can we run this thing right now? Let's see if we can get it to work, or if we're our if statement structure is not complete enough for us to run it. It comes up with our prompt. I'm going to do a W because I want to see if our stuff so far looks like it's working. And I did a lowercase w and it did accept that. It did notice it was winter. So I think we're good so far. So let me move this back out of the way so you can see that code. Now I want to leave my code up because we have some people that are still getting it down. But do try your S is your possibility to, and make sure you get the right messages. Now let's try another elif.
Oh, yeah, mine
S.
it did the winter.
Oh, did it? Let me try mine, make sure I didn't test it.
Could it be because the if statement is finished or something?
It looks like we should have both halves of that if statement, doesn't it? So I'm going to say if season equal W or season equal lowercase w. Let's see if that fixes up our problem. I haven't fixed the elif yet because I want to make sure that's what the issue is. I tested with the wrong thing. Yes. Oh, that helped. So I'm going to fix our elif clause too. And I'm going to say if season equal uppercase S or season equal lowercase s. So there are many things that Python will let us handle a little bit easier than some other programming languages. But it can only handle that when we're working with numbers, where we leave out half of our if statement. So anytime we have a condition, we have to have the right side and the left side. Okay, so let's put in our next season. We said you would be summer. I'm going to end my elif statement with that colon. And one thing to notice with idle, it is actually helpful for you. If you forget the colon, it won't indent your next line of code properly. So if it's not indenting and you notice you're having to do a lot of spacing and tabbing yourself, you might just be missing that colon character. Okay, so let's see. We'll print out something about the dog days of summer are here. That's kind of fall, but we'll use it as summer. We'll just do that. Old song, which you guys probably never heard. But that's all I can think of. Now, before we test, what do we need next? Our last possibility is fall. If we know that if we do an else clause, that means everything else. So should we just put an else clause and say, oh, it's fall? Or should we do another elif to check to make sure they put an F and then an else to say, I don't know what you wanted because there's an error.
I think it should be an elif.
An elif.
Because there's so many options that computer wouldn't know. Like if
Right.
Maybe if you miskeyed a character.
Yeah, we want to keep that else clause to be our error condition. So we'll do an actual check on our fall. We'll do one of those. Welcome to fall in the Ozarks. Beautiful, right? Unless your allergies are crazy. Be sure to take your allergy meds. Everybody always talks about allergies in the spring, and I think a lot of people around here have them in the fall because we have all those beautiful leaves falling. Finally, we'll put our else clause and we'll print something like,
Invalid.
yeah, that sounds great. Invalid input. Now, here in a couple of weeks, we'll be looking at looping structures. And of course, then we would be able to just loop and ask them for their input again. We're not quite there yet, so we'll just leave it as this. And then I'm going to put some stuff, some code for outside of our if statement. So I'll put a comment. This code is after our if statement structure. Because we had kind of a long if statement structure there, don't we? We'll print out, thank you for using our program. Try it now. If we want to test completely all of our different conditions, we would need to try an uppercase W, a lowercase w, an uppercase S, a lowercase s, an uppercase U and a lowercase u, or uppercase F and lowercase f, and then something else, right? Because we want to test every single condition to make sure that we don't have some sort of typo somewhere. It's so easy for us to just make one little mistake inside those double quotes and have an if statement not work the way we think it does. Yes, sir? Do you have a question? Oh, I thought you had a question. So let's run it. I'm just going to try a few, but that's what we would really need to do. So a lot of scripts and programs are tested with automated test systems, and that's the kind of test we would want to set up for this program, that it would try all of those different options. So there's my menu. I'll say summer, and I got my dog days of summer message. I'll run it again. Choose fall. That looks good. So you should be able to test all of your different options, and you should see the appropriate messages coming out based on what you chose. Now, what if you wanted to test this program? You were told to test this program, but you weren't supposed to ask for input. I want you guys to just think about it. Or you were seeing one of those code snippets, like what you see on your tests and stuff. We could actually just set our season variable equal to something, right? And then run it and test to make sure our if statement responded properly. So if I wanted to run a test like that, I could just comment out this line of code where we prompt our user. And I could set the season variable equal to S. And then if I ran it, I should see our spring message. There we go. So notice how that makes it more of one of those kind of code snippets like you guys see on the practice exams and tests, and when you're looking at some websites and things. So we like to prompt ourselves so that we are interactive and we see what's happening in the program. But we don't have to do that. And sometimes when we want to test a program, we want to run it over and over. We might just want to set a variable like that so that we can make sure that the right output comes out. I think everybody's been pretty good with those code snippets in understanding that. I did get a few comments back that, you know, some variable wasn't declared or things like that. When you're looking at those code snippets, it can be tough because you have to kind of zoom in on exactly what they were thinking you should focus in on. Now I'm going to put that back. I don't want to leave it that way, but I just want you to think about how you could test your program that way. Is everybody's working okay? Good? Good? All good? Good? Trouble? Trouble? Good? Okay, I'm going to save it and close it. And the one I said we were going to work on is that car price. It was in Raptor. I'm going to open my Raptor flowchart. I've had so many open, it's not in my recents. Oh, there it is. So I had named mine, and you don't have to find your Raptor flowchart, that's fine, because we'll just go off of mine. But if you have yours, you could open it. I just wanted to remind you what I'm talking about here. We wrote this one a few weeks ago. We have some information where we're trying to calculate the price of a new car. We set up some different modules here, like compute engine cost, compute interior trim cost, compute radio cost, things like that. And in all of these different modules, we set up an if statement or a little user prompt with a menu like that, ask the user what choice they wanted, and then based on their choice, we set up our variables. So I'd like to kind of write this one in Python and see if we can get the same thing going as we did in Raptor. So let's start out with our variables. Now in Raptor, we set it up with subprograms. We're not ready to do that with Python yet. So we're just going to create it all as sequential code. So I'm going to choose a new file, and then I'm going to save this. And I want to go to the right place. And I'm going to save this as Chapter 5, Car Price Calculator, Python. Now, as I look at the clock and I look around and stuff, I think we should save this one till next time. I hate to because I really wanted us to be able to work with those Raspberry Pis. We're just going to have to rearrange things a little bit. How are you guys doing on the assignments, your Code Academy, and the other one?
I was really confused on the second one. I did the first one okay, but I wasn't sure what to do on the second one. Maybe it's because it was really late at night.
Maybe
Right?
so.
I mean, do we just go through like all the chapter content and then is there like a test or something like that?
Oh, the second one, you mean that Runestone Academy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it can be kind of confusing. Let's bring that one up. So close out of your Python stuff. I just feel like we need to wait and do that car price one on a day when it hasn't been so terrible out. Let me bring that up. So you can do the Runestone Academy stuff either way. I know it's not very fancy, and that Code Academy site is like so fancy and slick. You just get all used to fancy stuff. Let me see if I can get logged in. It can also be a bear to get logged in. I think they have some trouble. I can get logged in if I remember my password. Okay, at the Runestone Academy, there's two ways you can go about it. That first assignment says module 1 and 2. So it just means those chapters. One thing, the exercises are always optional. Let's take a look at them. So like if I start out with module 1, I'm just going to click on the beginning of it. And then you guys would have an option if you haven't done it yet to mark as complete. So do that as you're going through. Now you'll have a very small amount of reading. Some of you are, I know, are way done with it. And then you'll have some interactive activities like to check your understanding.
Okay, so we just go through the different links and then send you a screenshot of all the grades.
Actually, you don't even have to send me a screenshot because I can see the grade book
Gotcha, 'cause it's
for this
very
one.
linked to the top.
But you can send me a screenshot if you want, because I do need a screenshot for Code Academy. So if you just want to do them for both so you don't have to worry about it, there's fine. Okay, the exercises, I just want to make sure that everybody is totally clear on this. When you get to the exercises, like in chapter 2, there will be like, I don't know, 70 of them or something. You don't have to do all those. Those are just for you if you want to practice on them.
Oh,
Back to top. Let me see if I can get back there now.
I just did it back in. Get back there.
Did it take you back? It's all mad at me. Chapter 2, section 2 has a lot more. If I go on the exercises, there's a whole bunch of them. Now the thing is, when you're looking at them, you can run whatever code is already here. Click Save and Run, and it'll show you the output. You can click Show in Code Lens, and it'll take you to that visualizer site that we were using earlier today. You can click on this Answer tab, and it will show you an answer if there is one for that question. And you can click on the Discussion tab and see if anybody else has made any comments about it. Some of the these early ones, you won't see much of that. So just look through those exercises and kind of use it in the best way for you. So if you need to try some of these exercises, try to code them. You can also click on Show Code sometimes. So there's some different options on here depending on what they feel like you should have available to you on this one. So you can do all of the different things, whatever works for you. They even have like sliders for, you know, going to a specific spot in the program or putting it back to its original settings and things like that. So I will never grade you on these exercises. These are all just practice for you to use however you like. Okay? So I want you to be the awesomest programmer ever and just use all of these tools in the best way for you to get to that point. The other thing about this one, the assignments are right up here at the top, kind of hidden. But if you click on assignments, it should show them to you. But that's all they are, is those different sections.
So then do we just get graded on going through the?
Just that you went through it, yeah. So you don't have, I'm not looking at for any sort of score or anything like that. Good, any other questions, stuff that's left out we haven't talked about? Let's take the rest of our day then on the lab day. If you want to stay and help with Raspberry Pis, do. If you want to stay and work on some of these, do. If you want to get home because you don't need to be here and it's icy out there, do that too. So I'm going to get the Raspberry Pis out though for a little while. Anyone wants to help fix these things.
Oh, by the way, Dad wanted to decide again. I think he told me about since it's so icy outside, we're going to put him today, and he's always excited about it. So no one told me thank you, or told you thank you solar engineer. Oh, he loves it. Yeah. I forgot the time. Actually, I think so. So what you want to
See what's going on. All right. So,
Mrs. Riley?
Mhm.
I know we talked before about like options for college, and I was saying that I might want to go to Rowlett after this. Which I think with my schedule, I could still live in Springfield and drive up there throughout the week. But how would somebody go about getting scholarships? Do you just contact the school and see what options?
here, just look at their website because most of them have a lot of scholarships.
Mhm.
You come on, look for, of course, the student ones. And since you're having them, special, just see what you can find. Special scholarships like that.
I do think I'd have a really good chance of getting a scholarship for that school.
Sure. Just
And then my work pays like over $5,000 a year too. So that's why I don't want to leave.
see because you would still want to get it. Just make sure that you're not putting in cards. Because a lot of things say, you don't need an application. They just take your information. Application.
And is that something that you can start building up and save the money, like in a savings account? Wow. That's an extra. You can buy a new
She was
car.
smart about the insurance. She put a part of all those.
That's just, I could probably, if I have any trouble with it, I could probably contact them with their advisors.
And if you need a lot of like a statement, like a one-page thesis about you or something, so that's something for you to work on, you know, because you want to have kind of a form, one that you can send in to a bunch so that you don't have to spend 2 days on every single application. Yeah, so you'll change it up a little bit. My daughter did hers when she was young. She had to go to Shriners for surgery 2 times. So she had a couple that were you know, because they can tell.
She's like, I mean, it's worth it.
My mom is a single mom, and she really can't. And now I help you with that. Like we all somebody helps them do everything themselves. I can also talk about my money and work with another, like, definitely start looking into it.
Yeah, see what kind of I'm going to the eye doctor today. I hope I can pick out better glasses.
I bought these online on.
Do you like them? I love them.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just like,
a website called Barbie Market. It's like a British website. And
I'm checking, because I gotta go look.
and they, yeah, we're big records. I searched for like 2 months before I made a decision on glasses because it's really important to me. And when I actually finally decided to order them, they're like, the website was like, we're out of these frames. But then I called them and they're like, we have them in sunglasses. We can just clear up the lenses for you. This website, they have, you can select eyeglasses and then for women and yeah. Oh, I think the plastic in those birch gets me a little extra.
Sorry, I'm
You're
just.
so dirty right now.
Checking them out.
I know that's okay. Oh, it's really easy because your eye doctor will give you their dimensions. Also they have a program there where you can order 5 at a time to travel care, and so that we can see what. So after that, that's what I just in face into the back.